They're dead, Dave.
What, Captain Hollister?
Everybody's dead, Dave.
What, Todd Hunter? What, Selby? Not Jen.
He's dead, Dave. Everybody is dead. Everybody is dead, Dave.
Welcome to Everybody is Dead Dave, the Red Dwarf review podcast where we make our way through every episode of Red Dwarf. There's always at least two of us here. Me, Phil, a long-time fan even, and Adam, watching it for the very first time.
Yes, indeed. Amazingly, for the first time in my 25 years of existence, but thoroughly enjoying it so far, I will point out.
And occasionally we like to invite a friend on to join us for a third perspective. Sometimes they're fellow long-time fans like me, sometimes they're complete newbies like Adam, and sometimes they're somewhere in between. And today, we're joined by the fabulous Jessie Gender. Welcome.
Hey, you also have Newt here. My cat is currently climbing all over me at the moment. So you have actually two guests at this point.
Yes.
Well, you know, we could get some informed opinions about the character of the cat from a cat.
Exactly. I'm sure Newt will have many thoughts about cat.
How do you feel, Newt, about the representation of the cat species in this program?
Do you want to say something? Someone tell me meow. No, it's a lot of thoughts. I think he finds it kind of stereotypical. You know, it's a bit offensive.
Yeah. I mean, you got to bear in mind this was, you know, the 80s, early 90s. Representation hadn't come along very far then. You know,
I mean, you just should have been happy to have a cat character at all, really.
At that point. Yeah. So, tell us a bit about yourself. Jessie, what's you're a fellow pop culture YouTuber?
Yeah, so I have a YouTube channel where I talk about basically pop culture and try to talk about social and political issues through, geek topics, like mostly LGBTQ stuff, but not always exclusively. And then also just like a general focus on Star Trek as well, though it's kind of shifting with time and whenever Star Trek shows are on, and also my random interests. So that's basically long and short of it.
I think we've said in the past when we've done collabs that my channel is very much a Doctor Who bent with like some spatterings of other stuff and the occasional Star Trek. And yours is like the flip side of that. Yours is mostly Star Trek with spatterings of other stuff, including a little bit of Doctor Who. So we're like the mirror image of each other there.
Two sides.
You just need to get the goatee and then a perfect mirror image.
Yes, well, I've got a beard. I could just shave the sides off and then I'll be the evil Mirror Universe counterparts. I think you're coming up to about 80,000 subscribers now on your main channel, aren't you?
Yeah, it's soon. Yeah, I'm aiming for the 100K by the end of the year. That's my goal. We'll see if that actually happens, but it should be fun.
If on the very off chance you have not heard of Jessie before this podcast, then do go check out her channel and help her get to that 100,000 by the end of the year.
Well, thank you very much. It should be fun, but it's a good time, and I enjoy it quite a bit. And Newt seems to enjoy the job that gives him food, so that's all there is.
Now, you also co-host a podcast with fellow YouTuber Council of Geeks, aka Vera Wild, aka Nathaniel. Yeah. And it's called What the Frell. It's a Farscape review podcast where a long-term fan and someone watching the show for the very first time review every episode of that show in order. And yes, you did do it first.
I was going to say, that sounds familiar, yes.
Yeah. Again, mirror images. I feel like Red Dwarf and Farscape feel like kind of mirror images of... Actually, that's actually not a completely inaccurate statement to say that Farscape and Red Dwarf are kind of mirror universe versions of each other. They're like people trapped on a ship that don't really like each other, but one's more of a comedy-based and one's more of a drama-based, but they both have elements of each other. But it's kind of basically the same basic concept to a degree.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I do have to admit that your podcast, which I have been listening to, although I am a bit behind on, is...
Gasp, how dare you?
I know. I've got to catch up. It was partly the inspiration for this one, because I was listening to that, and I said this when we had Council of Geeks on as well, that I was listening to that, and around about the same time, Adam on his YouTube channel had a video where he happened to mention that he'd never seen Red Dwarf, and I was like, yes. we need to do a podcast like this one.
The stars aligned.
That's how the Farscape podcast started. Like, I was literally on one of my live streams, and Council of Geeks just happened to be there, and I just mentioned I never saw Farscape. I think someone asked about it, and they were like, "You've never seen Farscape? Oh, I will be contacting you about that." And sorry, my cat is now eating Newt. Bud, come here. Yeah, I'm gonna put him in the other room because otherwise he'll get.
He wants to
mad
steal
at
the
my
show.
Exactly.
We're all being
He's like-
upstaged.
Exactly.
So there you go. If you want to indoctrinate somebody into a show that you love, invite them to start a podcast about it, and
Yeah.
that's the way to do it.
That's
Absolutely.
exactly the right way to do it. That's what I'm trying to get all my friends into Star Trek. It's like, let's do a Deep Space Nine podcast together.
Yeah. Well, if you ever need inspiration, before we delve into the Red Dwarf episode today, I've got to ask Jessie, and this might shock some people, but despite claiming to be a fellow nerd as well, I haven't seen that much of the Star Trek universe. I know only the first two modern movies, really.
Okay,
so,
well, I guess
yeah.
I can't associate with anybody like that. I'm off this podcast
it's not
right
because
now.
I'm saying, I don't like Star Trek. It's just something I never. Do you know what I mean? Like, you have shows where you're like, oh yeah, maybe I'll check that out, and then you just never end up doing it. But out of all of those Star Trek TV shows, I guess, is there any for a first timer? Should I start with the '60s one, or does it not really matter?
No,
because I've heard the '60s show is a bit, it has its ups, has its downs. So
It depends on your tolerance or stuff. And by the way, I should say it's totally cool. Obviously, any level of Star Trek, whether you've seen any Star Trek or no Star Trek, totally cool. But yeah, it kind of depends on what your level of tolerance is. If you're someone who's like a completionist and I need to see everything through, and you're like, I will see everything through regardless, I just need to make the plan. Start with the '60s show. That makes the most sense. If you're someone that needs like enticing, if you want like some of the best stuff, I would say start Next Generation, Deep Space Nine.
Okay.
Those two shows are generally the best. Just know that they both kind of start off rough.
Okay.
Like, especially Next Gen starts off very rough.
yeah, maybe
But
like
those are-
start with season 3 of Next
right,
Gen.
yes.
Yeah.
Just forget
Yeah.
the first two. Got you.
But if you're someone who's also like, I can't really stand older stuff, I would say like Star Trek 2009, Star Trek Discovery, those are fairly good on points as well. So it sort of depends on what you're looking. If you're a completionist, original series. If you're someone who like, I just need the quality stuff and that's it, Next Gen, Deep Space Nine. If you're looking for like, I need something more modern, Discovery's a good place to start. So.
Okay, that's cool. I mean, I'd probably go down more the completionist route, and in terms of tolerance, I mean, for someone who's put up with the hokiest episodes of classic Doctor Who, I think I'll be all right with classic Star Trek.
There's literally an
So-
episode where Spock gets his brain taken out of his body and gets walked around like a mechanical doll. That's
Yes.
it's like something right out of Red Dwarf.
Let's
They take
go.
it totally
Let's
seriously.
Phil, that's what we're doing next. We're going to do the original Star Trek.
Once we finish this
yeah,
in about a year and a half's time.
yeah, that's true.
It is just as funny in a completely sincere way.
Yeah.
Well, there we go. As Lister once said, I believe in an episode, enough of all that Star Trek crap. Let's move on to Red Dwarf.
There is a Spock reference in this episode, which made me very happy. Sorry, that was an aside, but
Oh.
We're talking about White Hole today, which is a series 4 episode. As usual, I've forgotten which episode number it is. Are we on
Episode 4, I think.
You're good at remembering this. Episode 4, that's it, of series 4 of Red Dwarf.
okay. I'm sorry, I gotta stop you right. Come on. You Brits have like 6 episode seasons. We're here in like the US, we got like 26, 30 episodes. How do you not remember what number you're on?
It's because we have no money. We can't afford to do 26. You think the BBC, it's like, oh yeah, you'll make 26 episodes. They were like, started sweating.
Partly the reason I can't remember which episode we're recording is because I tend to we record these in advance, about roughly between 4 to 6 weeks, depending on how far ahead we are of when they go out. So at this very moment, I'm editing a different episode to go out tomorrow. So I always get confused about which episode number I'm editing and which episode number I'm recording. So
Gotcha.
that's the explanation for. Well, that's my excuse anyway for my terrible memory there. So White Hole, to give a brief synopsis of it, the Red Dwarf crew attempt to restore Holly's 6,000 IQ, but while more than successful there, it had some unintended consequences for her lifespan, and she shuts herself down and the ship off to save herself, leaving the crew extremely vulnerable to a white hole that the ship comes across. Now, before we start, I do need to ask you guys one very important question.
Oh boy.
Would you like some toast?
Give me some chance to make a cup of tea, and yeah, I'll have some toast.
Because we have the return of Talky Toaster
Yeah.
at the very top of this episode, who we haven't seen for a couple of series, I believe.
Yeah, with snazzy new
one
design.
one thing I forgot to ask you, Jessie, at the top was what's your history with the show? Do you have you seen every episode or?
Oh, I've seen every episode, even up to like the most recent movie. Also, I'm actually worried now because did
you watch a different episode?
Is this the one with the body swap?
No.
Oh no!
Oh,
Ladies and gentlemen, we have a guest who watched the wrong episode.
Well, I'm sorry. I'm literally looking at. So I downloaded it, and it says episode 4, season 4, White Hole. I'm not even kidding. It says White Hole here, but it's a different episode, and I'm like, oh no.
man.
I'm listening to your description. I'm like, I think I watched the wrong episode. But it says white. But like, I'm not crazy. It says White Hole.
Somebody's labeled the wrong episode.
Yeah.
With the wrong title.
What's wrong with you,
in the file
internet?
name.
Come on,
Oh,
simple.
no.
I'm so sorry.
Don't worry.
So-
don't worry.
Because this is the body
this
swap.
has never
one.
happened before.
It hasn't.
Yes, I mean, you know, we've already done the body swap one, so we can't do it again.
Oh wait, was Body Swap Series 3 episode 4?
Oh, it might
Is
be.
that where they've?
Says,
Is that where the person who's maybe I don't know, but
Let me have a look.
have we done?
'Cause I've
Have we
got-
done Body Swap?
We have done body swap. It's
did.
the one we did with Billy. It was the worst one. The worst one we thought was the worst
it was a
episode
pretty
so
bad
far.
one. I was like, wow, this is a really terrible episode.
Yeah, it is a terrible episode. It is the worst rated episode. It's the worst rating we've given an episode so far. Body swap. Yeah, series 3, episode 4. They've just
Why is
labeled the
this-
series wrong.
Yeah, it straight up says
Oh.
series 4, episode
Wow.
4, White Hole. No. I mean, if you don't mind waiting,
Half an hour while you watch the episode.
I can do that real quick if you don't mind.
That
I
is
don't know how
fine.
much
We
time
can
you
do
have.
that. I'm happy to do that.
It's
Yeah.
fine by me. Yeah.
It'll be
We can
very
just start- we
fresh
can
in your
just
memory.
start- yeah,
Yeah.
we can just start right at. Yeah, give me a hot minute.
I'm
I'm
including
so
this
sorry.
in the podcast.
Oh, please do.
This is staying in.
I'm gonna download it right now and get the right episode. Oh my god, I feel so bad. I'm so sorry
No,
about
don't
that.
worry. It's okay.
Look at me being
I did wonder why you looked very confused when I asked if you'd like some toast.
I was like, oh no.
You'll be watching that film back in the edit, just like the look of fear. As you say, it's like what?
Oh shoot. At least it's only like a 20-minute show.
That's true.
But-
At least we weren't doing
Yeah.
like I don't know, like a movie review or something.
Oh god,
like...
yeah, we're doing one of the movies. Well, here we can talk about my history with Red Dwarf real quick while it downloads, and then I'll quick watch it, and then we can. But yeah, no, my Red Dwarf history. So while we're waiting for this, I saw all of it like years and years ago, and then I've seen all the way up to the newest movie that like just came out like last year.
The Promised
I was
Land,
so-
yeah.
Yeah, and I remember I was so excited because when I lived in London for a semester of college, and it was the year that season 10 came out, like, and so they had like this, like the Red Dwarf X, like all over posted everywhere, and I'm like, yes, I know the show. I get the British stuff. I get it now.
Where did you first encounter it then? Was it on PBS?
No, weirdly, my first actual encounter with it was a friend of mine. So I worked at a Boy Scout summer camp, and on weekends we were allowed to like go wherever, do whatever. But it was up in the Adirondacks, so there was nothing really around. And one of my friends actually lived in the Adirondacks, and he invited us over to his house, and we watched the entire first series of Red Dwarf in like a day, while we were just like had a day off. So that was a lot of fun. And then from there, I think it was on Netflix for a hot minute.
Yeah, it only got, I don't know about in the US, but it got removed from Netflix here a couple of weeks ago. So I've now had to go over to watching it on BritBox. I don't know if you've heard of BritBox, but that's another streaming service which I think is available in the US, and it hosts, it's basically all British stuff. So if you like other British comedies and stuff and want somewhere to I sound like I'm an advertising exec for them or something. Yeah, like, go watch BritBox. Go watch all the British stuff.
So, sponsored by BritBox. We make no money from them. They don't even know we exist, but sponsored by BritBox.
Free subscription would be appreciated.
Please.
All right, this looks like it's almost downloaded. So
Okay.
I'm gonna hop off. I'm gonna watch this, and actually I will. So I sometimes watch shows at double speed. I'll double speed this one. I know it won't be exactly.
You don't have
as
to.
good as-
It's fine.
No, it's fine. I don't want to keep you guys waiting too long. I feel bad.
So, after a brief interlude there while Jessie went and watched
And it's
the
like
episode,
a 30-minute interlude.
we are back.
We're back.
Jessie has now seen the correct episode. Adam has replenished his tea
I do. I
And
got another cup of tea.
we're good to go. So
It's almost
we're-
like the timeline has been reset and
Yes.
we've gone back. So now I can make the references that people will get.
yep. And we can finally talk about Talky Toaster.
got all the way back.
Talkie's the name, toasting's the game.
So, what did people think of Talky Toaster this time round?
Yeah, I mean, did we see him? It was series 1 we saw him in first, wasn't it? And then
Might have been 2, actually.
was it 2?
I can't remember. It was 1 or 2.
One of those first 2 seasons or series, and then yeah, I liked him. I like the jokes. I like the personality of Talky Toaster. I like the fact that when Lister first comes in the room and realizes like what it is, he just hates it straight away. That was really funny. But yeah, no, I like Talky.
I always enjoyed Talkie Toaster. Like I said, I'm watched 2 episodes recently, and having not watched it in so long, I'm just like, I remember Talkie Toaster. Talkie Toaster's great. He's the only one who is just living his best life, I feel like, on this ship.
Constantly asking if you want some toast. Talking of which, has anybody ever tried asking an Echo device if they want some toast?
No.
No, let me do it for you. Hold on, I've got one behind me.
No.
Alexa, would you like some toast?
No thanks. I want no muffins, no toast, no tea cakes, no buns, baps, baguettes or bagels, no croissants, no crumpets, no pancakes, no potato cakes and no hot cross buns, and definitely no flapjacks.
There you go.
No
That is
way.
perfect. That is
No
amazing.
way. Wow.
Oh, that's freaking amazing.
She watches Red Dwarf.
She's a Red Dwarf
and
fan.
knows- yeah.
Excellent.
I wonder if that will still. I don't have one in this room. I have one in the other room. But I wonder if that would still happen in the US or if that's just a
Ooh.
UK central.
You'll have to try it later and report back.
I will, yeah.
So, did you know that the voice of Talky Toaster here, I think it's a different I don't think it's the same voice as when Talky Toaster previously appeared.
Yeah.
But the voice of Talky Toaster here is the actor that played the original Crichton in Series 2 of Red Dwarf.
Oh shoot!
Oh.
Oh, that's awesome.
So
So
they
he
brought him
wasn't
back.
salty about being recast then. So-
No, and in fact, in a apparently in an interview, this is David Ross is the actor's name. Apparently, in a interview, he once said that he found voicing Talky Toaster much more enjoyable because he didn't have to endure the makeup.
Yeah, and then you just show up whenever you want on like a Tuesday and just
Yeah,
like,
and he
in the audio
didn't have
booth.
to learn the lines because he just stood in front of a microphone with his script and.
yeah.
I mean, the lines can't be that hard for the character.
Yeah.
I mean, would you like some toast?
Would you like some toast?
How
Great,
about a
David.
bagel?
Go again. So, yeah. Yeah.
It's like I am Groot.
Yeah. Vin Diesel, man, made so much money on saying that, hasn't he?
I am Groot.
There you go. That's
Vin.
the new
There's
casting.
$2 million
Yeah.
right there, or whatever. So.
If they ever make a Red Dwarf like big screen movie, that's who they need to cast as Talky Toaster. Get
Or
Vin Diesel in.
That would be I would be so. I mean, having just watched F9 or F9 as they say last night.
F9.
F9. I am all down for Vin Diesel everything.
Oh man, I love the waffle joke in it. You know, like what Alex just did there, the whole no bats, no baguettes, and it's the running gag. And then Talky's like, so you're a waffle kind of guy. It just really kept it going. I loved it.
I was wondering at this point because anybody who is a long-time listener of the podcast will know that Adam has a bit of a thing
Right.
against jokes that go on for a long time. So I was very curious about how you'd feel about
Right.
this one.
Just for content for you, Jessie. It's not that I don't like long jokes. I just think my I was going to say my attention span then, but I'm selling all my generation short. I just like I feel the essence of like, you know, the comedy in a joke can be lost like so quickly. And usually if it's and there's just been some episodes in the last few series of Red Dwarf where I think that's happened. Like they've started strong and then somewhere in the middle the energy of it just drops out a bit, and then by the time the punchline's there, I'm like, I'm not really bothered about it anymore.
Yeah,
So,
I definitely feel you a lot in like a lot of Red Dwarf. I feel like it has that same sort of thing where like the energy does just sort of drop and you're sort of like, all right, I got it, and
Yep.
let's get to where it's going. I feel like even jumping ahead, I feel like that even gets a little bit ahead in the bit later on where they're sort of like jumping back and forth in the conversation. It goes on just a tad too long.
Yeah. Tight, yeah. Oh, don't worry, we'll get to that. But
Yeah. I don't want to jump ahead, but yeah,
no,
I like the Talky Toaster bit, especially like number one for me, having not seen it in like the show in a long while. I'm like, okay, this is a nice little bit of like, oh yeah, I got a nice little hit of nostalgia. But I feel like it works again, having not seen the toaster in so long, and then you're just like, oh god, is it going to be any different? It's going to change, and it's like it's like a nice return for that after like 2 seasons of it not being there, or 3 seasons possibly. So.
Yeah, and we now know where it's been as well, because as you referenced that earlier, Adam, that Dave comes in and he's like, "Oh no, what have you done? Why have you reactivated it?" And they refer to this accident, which was basically Dave just shoving it down the garbage chute to try and get rid of it because it kept on offering him toasted breaded products constantly. The reason they've resurrected this, the Crichton has decided to resurrect this toaster though, is they're going to use it to restore Holly's IQ of 6,000, which got lost at some point. Now, I think that this episode paints it as certainly lost in that 3 million years before the show starts, after the accident. But I mean, I do remember that Holly, played by Norman Lovett, referred to himself as still having an IQ of 6,000, although his portrayal of it wasn't necessarily. Was that just him sort of pretending he still had an IQ of 6,000?
Or even thinking that he did still?
Yeah. I was wondering about that. But they're even more successful than they ever thought possible, because not only do they give her an IQ of 6,000, they give her an IQ of 12,000, double her previous IQ, and she gets a new slick look. Slick back hair.
Yeah. I love that, increased intelligence means your hair must be slick back. Apart from that one little curl she had just dangling on her forehead.
Perfect curl. That is intelligent, like the intelligent way to look, of course.
Oh, absolutely. And so very of its early 90s era, isn't it? The perfect curl dangling. I just was like, okay.
It is kind of like sort of almost the late 80s, early 90s female businesswoman type look, isn't it?
Yeah. So I got my pantsuit on. I'm ready. I can be a woman in a man's world. Like, I can do this.
If she had shoulders, she would be wearing shoulder pads.
Yeah. Exactly.
And also now that she has an IQ of 12,000, she's able to leave the screen and now just float in midair.
I was gonna do that. Very I guess that just you can break physics now at 12,000.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
She very quickly, using her new IQ, managed to construct or replicate another holographic projector that can somehow be sustained, even though they're also sustaining Rimmer.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I suppose there is holographic projectors around because Rimmer's around, so I suppose why not?
Yeah. I guess so. Yeah.
I keep forgetting though that Rimmer's a hologram until they mention it in this episode about the power drain. And I was like, oh yeah, he's dead. It's a hologram.
Just like when you watch this show, head, not constantly.
Well, I know there's the big H on the head, but they don't obviously the further you go, because obviously in the earlier seasons, we've said before, it's that whole thing of in the early season, whenever they leave the ship, he has to be in one of those cage things to sustain the power, and then from series 3 onwards, they're like, nah, that's too impractical. He can do whatever. So when that started, I think I just gradually forgot that he was not forgot. When you say actors are so good at a role, you forget that they're acting, sort of thing. I think it was just that. I just forgot that he was a hologram. And then they were like, oh yeah, he's hologram unit. I was like, oh yeah, he's kind of dead. So
yeah. And it still comes up, but if I recall, future seasons get that less and less and less. It still comes up from time to time, though. But
yeah.
As well as the fact that they have increased her IQ, though, there is a side effect which has dramatically reduced her lifespan somehow to about 3 minutes and 45 seconds or something like that.
Yeah.
So she switches herself and the ship off just to save herself, which is going to kill the rest of the crew, because that means the air supply and stuff and everything else is going to shut down.
Yeah. This brought me to one of my favourite moments where, when it all goes off and the other guys are in the corridor And Crichton says, "Can you hear that?" And he's like, "No, you can't, because there are no sounds to hear." It's just, I don't know why. It just really the way he performed it really tickled me. He took it so seriously. But
my favorite one is when they finally get to the you have to use Crichton to bash in all the doors.
Oh yes.
And it's just like a quick one. It's like, "Are you okay?" Crichton's like,
I'm fine, thank you, Susan.
like it's just like a small little off the cuff. I'm like, that's wonderful, absolutely wonderful.
I think
great.
that is a GIF that I have used on Twitter before. Him going about, "Yes, I'm fine, Sally," whatever he says.
Yes. Also, we didn't mention the Talky Toaster like extended segment that goes on with
of
Holly and
course,
Talky
yeah.
Toaster. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, do we think there's too many bread jokes from Toasty? And yes, I know that's the point, but like, I don't know.
It felt different to the first scene with him in enough that I still enjoyed this second scene of his interaction with Holly. And the fact that he keeps on saying, "Oh, I've got to ask you a question. It's a very important question before you turn off," and it's always about bread.
Yeah.
And then the very final one where what does he say?
It's actually good. Yeah.
Given that God is infinite, and that the universe is also infinite, would you like a toasted tea cake?
I thought it worked. It's one of those jokes where you know exactly where it's going right from the start, and you're like, it's fine. I'm fine with it. I'll take this ride with you.
Yeah. I think Hattie as Holly made that scene for me. I think more than Talkie, just because I think we've said before with Holly, they're trying to do that thing of like, obviously the computer has a personality, but also tries to do that thing of still remaining like stoic in the face and relatively non-expressive. And I just think Hattie Haybridge has nailed that now, because like, her voice is going up and down all the time. There's emotion in there, but her face remains that wonderful like computer like base level stoicness for the most part. And I don't know, just as an actor, I just found that really admirable, because it's not an easy thing to do. It's like, give emotion but don't show it. It's like, okay, that's
and she did a really good job of differentiating the low IQ, slightly ditzy Holly and the intelligent, differentiating them, but still feeling like they were the same character. And that, it's just somebody that has just had a change in IQ, as opposed to completely rewritten their whole sense of self, if you see what I mean.
Yeah. It's a nice little subtle bit, yeah.
So they, as well as the power's gone off, but they have worked out that one way they can survive a bit longer is by turning off Rimmer, which obviously Rimmer is not happy about. And one bit I really liked was from the cat, where he says, "I'd do it," and Rimmer goes, "You'd sacrifice yourself for the good of the crew," and he goes, "No, I'd sacrifice you for the good of the crew." It's a typical absolute cat thing, and we're starting to see the build up of their like. Rimmer has always been the butt of jokes and the butt of Cat's jokes, but as we getting more and more into the series, there is this real like it always comes from Cat now, and like every opportunity Cat will get to say, "Oh, why can't we leave him behind? Why can't that becomes a very much a reoccurring thing, and it's starting around now, I think."
Yeah. And you get a little less of like Lister being annoyed, but still like appreciating River more and more. I feel like they have their moments of bonding occasionally. I miss the observer deck scenes we got in series 1 and 2 of them bonding up on the observation deck, but we don't seem to get those anymore. But they do have their moments, and they will continue to as well. So
I think Lister's been very philosophical in a way these past few episodes, like compared to the start of the show when he is literally, like the slob who's like taking like say what Cat's doing now. And then in the last episode, Justice, literally we said at the end, he goes on like not 3 minute, he goes on a very long speech about the justice system that seemingly comes out of nowhere. And then in this episode, obviously with Holly gone, he's on about, "Oh, I never realized how much I relied on technology." And I was like, there's the message. And I was like, this was 1991, Terminator 2, that whole, technology's getting too big for its boots and all that. So, but I don't know, I felt the message in this one at least wasn't as, whilst it was addressed, it wasn't sort of as on the nose and out of nowhere as that Justice one was, perhaps. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, and it gets a little bit messy too. In if you're looking for a message, because then there's the bits like it takes them like 5 days to like travel to the like cargo hold, which is also great. Yeah, I like that idea that the ship's so huge that it takes 5 days to get from place to place if you're just walking around.
There was an episode we watched recently that had Rimmer go on a hiking holiday around the ship. He went on like a 2-week hiking holiday around the ship, exploring different parts of the ship, and he was showing off his slides of him in like engineering section B12 or whatever it was.
That's wonderful. That's absolutely wonderful.
We get to a point where there's this sort of middle bit of the episode, which is kind of a bit weird because it's kind of between the two. They're just kind of dealing with the fact that the ship has no power. It's before the white hole stuff kicks off. So it kind of felt, I don't know if anybody else felt this, it kind of felt a little bit like a weird lull where they're just trying to like, they got the scene where they're on the bike where Lister's on the bike.
He's trying to power the hairdryer.
Trying to power a hairdryer to cook a egg.
Which is, I was like, would that work? I feel like it might. If you hold it
I thought that as well. I was like, wait.
Yeah, I mean, you're applying heat to it. It's going to cook eventually. It's just whether you can sustain it long enough.
I mean, I've burned myself with a hairdryer before. I feel like you do it.
Yeah. I don't know how it would taste.
Probably not good. You might get whatever, like raw egg poisoning, whatever that is. Yeah, but
yeah,
but better than baked beans, apparently.
Oh.
Mainly because of the smell.
Yes,
according to
I sort of know what you mean though. Like that scene was a bit. Yeah, it's just because I did think as well. Like the white hole stuff only really comes into play for like the last. 10 minutes of the episode.
I mean, fair, that is almost half the episode.
That is true. That is true. But yeah, no, I thought that scene was a bit lully as well. It wasn't bad, but it was just it was just sort of there.
The weird thing is, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, it kind of follows the rules of a lot of sitcoms of this era, where it's like the first half of the episode is like an extended bit. And then there's like a second half of the episode that's like another extended bit, but you have like the transition bit in the middle, and like the first and last part of the episodes don't really connect. Like I remember seeing that. You see that a lot in like The Simpsons in this era too, where it's just like you have like a shorter 5 to 10 minute bit, and then you have like the last half of the episode is another sort of bit, but they're like two separate ideas generally.
Yeah, and in my memory of this episode, these were two different episodes in my memory. Like I generally thought that the episode where, and we'll get to it, that Lister was playing pool with planets was a completely separate episode to the one where they tried to increase Holly's IQ. That's just like, the Mandela effect or whatever it is. It's not the Mandela effect because it's not loads of people. It's just me. but where like you're so convinced I was just so convinced they were two completely separate episodes that when it did that transition to the white hole stuff, I was like, oh, this is the same episode. Oh, okay. I've clearly remembered this all wrong.
Yeah. It's interesting. It's just interesting, like, structure for comedies at this time.
Yeah.
Because now we get, we get a little bit of that still today, but I feel like most sitcoms are just like, all right, we have one basic idea going all the way through. No, there's some times where it breaks that, but generally that's sort of the way.
Yeah, they might have, like, an unconnected pre-credit skit type bit, and then the main plot kicks off pretty much as soon as the credits finish rolling or something like that. Yeah. What happens next? So we get the time dilation starts. And we get what I felt was quite a good reference back to an old episode with Kat going, "What is it?" Which references back to Stasis Leak when which is another timey-wimey episode, because it was the episode where they go back to when the crew were all alive in time travel. And Kat, in that episode, asks, "What is it?" And somebody explains it. He doesn't understand, so he goes, "What is it?" And I didn't like that joke in that episode. I thought that one went on too long. I just didn't find it particularly funny. However, here, I liked what they did with it here because it was kind of referencing back to that. He said it in exactly the same way, so it felt like they were referencing it. But what they did with it, with the whole looping time, and sometimes it was him having looped time, sometimes it was him just joking about it and doing it again. I thought that worked really well. What do you guys think?
I liked it. I think, as I said before, I think this whole scene goes on a tad too long, just like a little bit of a hair too long. But I liked that joke part of it was really, really, really good. Yeah, I think so. I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
No, I think I agree with you, Jessie, that it went on a little bit too long for me. Like the ideas of it, and like you said, Phil, about it sometimes being a joke and sometimes being the dilation. Like the first time around, like, yeah, great, loved it. And even the second time around, changing it up a bit. But then when they started doing it again, I was like, okay, like, cool, thank you for your joke. I appreciate it. Let's progress. Let's have a new joke. But yeah, I guess it's always hard, isn't it? Because obviously with comedy being so subjective, I'm sure lots of people would have found all of that really funny and that it was the perfect length and all that. But yeah, just for me, it was a little bit too long.
Yeah, along with that and like the scene beforehand where they're like doing the arm stretchy bit and like the time dilation. And I get this is like a little bit older, so like the idea of like time dilation might need a little bit more explaining. But I was sort of like, all right, I got it after about 2 seconds, and the whole bit where they're like, I'm speaking really fast, you're speaking really slow. I was like, all right, yeah, that was, yep, we got that.
Yeah,
got that.
I do agree there.
Yeah.
They only needed to do that once.
Yeah,
They did it
I
like
agree.
almost 3 times. They did it like, okay, they're in separate things. One crosses over to the other one, and it sounds the same again. So it's just back and forth. And they did that too many times.
I will say though that scene, I agree with you guys. It did go on a bit too long, but it did contain my funniest line of the episode, which I'll save for the end.
Save for the end when we come to our funniest moments. Okay, I look forward to hearing that. So that scene with the what is it scene, I like the cat stuff. I also liked the for me that didn't go on too long. I mean, I can see it might have gone on at like a fraction too long. But what I liked was that they did keep changing, like, it wasn't all that, the cat repeating what is it. There were other things mixed in there. Like, there was the bit about like, almost like they skipped a bit. So they were like, oh, that's an answer to a conversation we haven't had yet. And then later on we see that and the kind of timey-wimey nature of it. I mean, we're all Doctor Who fans here. We love a timey-wimey situation.
Oh, yes.
Exactly. Gotta love it. It's like, and I like that's how it ends. Like, and here's the middle. Yeah, that was a good little way to wrap it out.
Yeah. And then they fixed the time dilation by playing pool with planets,
which is such an awesome concept. I love that idea.
Yeah,
it's great, and they visualized it really well with the kind of getting the 3D projection of the planets up and him having this kind of like how they were going to fire the thing was positioned with almost like a pool cue, but it was on this weird arm, mechanical arm thing.
Beautiful BBC early 90s 3D. Can't go wrong.
Yeah, but
I
thought it actually looked
it was
good.
For 1991, I was like, okay, you spent some money back then,
Yeah. No, the effects that I always love, like, the effects of this era where it's just like some weird editing tricks and like, but then actually some random like really good CGI. Like earlier in the episode, it's clearly like the editing bit was just like they cut a scene in half and like they just elongated one side of it when they were in the hallway. Whereas here it's like, this is actually some decent CGI. So it just goes from like the barest, like the quickest, cheapest way you could do an effect to some more expensive ones. It's kind of funny.
And the model work as well, especially like when you see Lister take the oh my god, I was like, wow, man. Like, and Starbug, I mean, I think we've said before that the ships like Starbug and all that always look great as models, and it's the same in this. Like all the planets flying around and the explosions going off. It was one of the best, like I'd say, model sequences that I've seen so far on the show. I'm not sure how many. I've been warned, you see, Jessie, that eventually in the late 90s, around maybe series 7 or 8, the awkward 90s CGI starts to come in a little bit, and I'm like, okay, I'm waiting for it.
From the model work and into CGI a bit more.
I'm doing a Star Trek Voyager rewatch right now, and I'm just like, Star Trek has that same thing around that point where they move away from the models and into terrible CGI. I'm like, ooh.
Yeah, it's like. Isn't it funny, though, how like, obviously CGI, I guess, ages all the time, the nature of it and stuff, but it's always that like mid to late 90s that has aged the worst. Like some of the 2000s stuff, you can be like, yeah, that's all right. You can tell it's older, but it's all right. Mid to late 90s, it's like, that's...
but it's one of those things,
polygon.
isn't it? They had to do that for it to get
of course,
for them to improve enough to get to the point where they are now.
Yeah, well, I think what the difference was like when they were just starting, I was like, hey, cool, we have CGI, so we want to show it to you, and because they show it to you, they like don't have any ways to hide it. They're just like, look at CGI, and so it gets so clearly just not a thing that exists there and looks very waxy and very awful.
Yeah.
But then as you get away from that, they start to realize, CGI works best when you like kind of like put it in shadow or like kind of hide it in like other things and sort of like try and fit it into the scene a little more instead of like showing like, look, it's CGI. And that's sort of the difference, I feel like.
Yeah.
But
Well, thank God they did go down that route. Could you imagine if today we were still in that look, it's CGI realm with like all the big budget movies and stuff? How weird would that be?
Oh yeah.
But at the time,
Unless you're a Marvel movie.
as a kid at the
Well,
time,
Marvel
I
movie.
remember thinking it all looked really cool, all the CGI, which now looks terrible. Like I remember watching the Mighty Morphin Power Ranger movie
boy.
of the 90s, and
Yes.
that has CGI Zords in it. And
It does.
now, looking back, oh my word, they look terrible. But at the time, I was like, oh my word, they're the coolest Zords ever.
Yeah.
There's an episode. So tonight after this, I'm recording What the Frell, and there's in the episode of Farscape I just watched for that. They literally do a scene where it's just like, oh, we're gonna do a full CGI creature, just show you everything, and just like, oh boy, that did not. No, oh god, no.
Oh no, yeah.
So, the Lister initially isn't going to be playing Pool with Planets. It's just Holly has come up with where they need to hit everything, and it's kind of projected onto the screen. And Lister's like, no, that won't work. That won't work. Trust me, I've played Pool my whole life. This is what you need to do. And I'm glad that somebody in the show actually was like, oh, what? That makes no sense. Planets don't work the same way as a pool table. And he's like, no. And of course, he pulls it off.
Of course.
Trick shot.
Trick shot. Yeah.
Trick
Do you
shot.
think he intended that all to happen, or was that
no.
just pure luck?
Oh god, no, yeah.
Oh yeah, no, he just sheer luck.
Have you ever seen it like a game? I have at least. So in a game of pool when something like that happens and the person's like, "Oh yeah, calculated, absolutely," and you're like, "No, come on!" Like you got a very lucky break, and they're like, "Nah, planned it." It's like, all right, we'll do it again, and then they never can. Yeah, as
That's
much
like
as I
with-
love Lister, yeah, he didn't plan that.
That's like with me with every video. It's just like, yeah, I planned that. That was supposed to be funny. Yeah.
I wish I could say the same. Oh yeah, I planned to get demonetized by YouTube. I planned that.
Yeah. It was a
They just
calculated
keep
game.
coming after me.
I hate money. It's fine. I don't need to eat. It's fine.
Yeah, I can just exist.
But he's successful, and
Yeah.
and as a consequence, the white hole is closed, which means the time dilation somehow wibbly wobbly timey wimey means none of this ever happened. Literally,
Yep,
the
it's
whole
basically-
episode did not happen.
Pulling a Star Trek Voyager reset button at the end.
Yeah, good old
Reset
big
button at
red
the end.
reset button, which Crichton takes full advantage of in his last moments before they pop out of existence to tell Rimmer what he really thinks of him.
Yeah.
Which is nice. At least it's like somebody like, oh, we understand, like he can do that sort of thing. It's a nice little moment of character growth that also, like, even though it's reset, like at least makes you understand how he feels for later episodes. So at least it shows you something.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I thought it was quite a funny note to end the episode on as well, because another thing that we've said in the past is the ending of episodes on Red Dwarf is a bit hit and miss. Sometimes it can really be like, oh, that just came out of nowhere, that just ended, and like it was a really weird ending.
Yeah.
But this one I think worked quite well. It kind of tied up. It felt like it got to its natural conclusion, and it was a funny ending line to end on.
Yeah.
Except,
No.
oh sorry.
No, you go. It's fine.
I don't know why I should care to think about the logic of Red Dwarf, but but the whole thing is, okay, if they did the redundant timeline and like it erases everything and everything still goes on as it were, and they'll still exist in the normal timeline, they still would have tried to reset Holly though, because that was before they encountered the white hole. So it's like, would that still be a problem in future episodes where she only has like a 3-minute lifespan? It should technically be so, but it won't be. But technically it should be.
Unless they were already feeling the effects of the white hole but hadn't noticed it yet.
I guess so, but
That-
only if the
that
white
can-
hole influences them to decide to do that in the beginning, right? Yeah. I'm just saying the logic of Red Dwarf isn't following through. I'm very upset. This is the show where I demand clear
And as we know,
precise logic.
up until this point, the logic of Red Dwarf has been
Oh, yeah.
flawless.
Yeah,
Immaculate.
the logic
They-
and continuity has been perfect.
They'd absolutely never set up anything at the end of the episode and completely ignore it the following week.
Yep, never, ever at
Never.
all.
And yeah, that's kind of the end of the episode. I mean, we'll move on to our favorite character and favorite funniest moments in a second, but is there anything else anybody had it like in their notes that they wanted to bring up or anything? Have we covered everything?
I think I got all of mine. Yeah.
I got all mine.
Yeah. Excellent. So one thing we usually do here on the show is we talk about who our favorite character was in the episode. So Jessie, as the guest, who would you like to go first? Who was your favorite character? It can be for any reason whatsoever. It can be because they were the funniest. It can be because they had an emotional impact on you. It can be just because you liked one line. You know, anything really.
I mean, it has to be the toaster. Come on.
Yeah.
It has to. That's the best character. Come on. Would you like some toast?
Adam, do
There
you
we go.
concur?
I concur.
Yeah, me too.
After that first scene, I was like, Talky's probably gonna be my favorite, unless one of them like really pulls. And you know, the others were great as usual, but yeah, Talky absolutely stole the show this time, which breaks my Crichton streak of I think is it 4 episodes in a row?
Yeah, the
It was
last
my
4
favourite,
episodes,
so-
your favorite character has been Crichton.
So Talky's done it.
Yeah.
He's broken the streak.
Yeah,
I mean,
Talkie for
Crichton's
me
always
too.
my favorite, so I'm sad that he's not my favorite in this one either. But, yeah.
But I will say that Holly comes a close second in this one because she does do some great stuff, and well, I think you know, out of probably the most, although she wasn't in the second half of the episode much, the first half was probably the most we've seen of her, you know, focus on her since Hattie took over the role from Norman Lovett at the beginning of series 3. So that was nice to see. So she's a close honorary second for me.
Yeah.
Honorary
Exactly.
second, like that.
What about funniest moments? What was everybody's funniest moments? It can be a line, it can be a whole scene.
I mean, I'm trying to think. I think I'm gonna have to give it to the opening bit with the whole like I don't want any of the whole bit. I think that might be my my favorite scene of the whole episode.
Good choice. That was going to be mine as well until this line in the... And this, I'm sure maybe some of you listeners will be like, why, that's not funny. But it's the line when they're doing the time dilation stuff. And I think it's Crichton who's in the, let's call it the slow-mo portion. And Rimmer says, you sound like Paul Robeson on Dope. And that just really made me...
That
because I love Paul Robeson. Like, for anyone who... I know he's quite an old singer, but if you listen to it, he's got a very, very deep voice. Very beautiful
my dad
voice.
used to listen to him.
Now here's
Really
here's a turn up for the books, because usually it's me having to explain to you the cultural references in this show because I'm somewhat older than you are, Adam. But this time you're going to have to explain to me who this person is, because I've never heard of this person.
Paul Robeson was a singer from, I think, like the 1920s to the am I right in saying like the 1940s, I think 40s,
so,
50s?
yeah. I don't know the
Yeah.
specifics. I just know the voice because my dad used to listen to him all the time. So.
Yeah, he did a lot of old-timey musical stuff like
Okay.
Porgy and Bess and Showboat as well. If you just listen to his voice, though, it's a lovely, like, deep, resonant baritone voice. And so when, obviously, given that Crichton's got a deep voice, and he said, you sound like Paul Robeson on Dope, that made me, for some reason, imagine what if Paul Robeson just got high, and that made me laugh. And I kept laughing and actually forgot what the next part was. So it's only because I have that connect, because it's my grandmother's favourite as well. And I really love Paul Robeson, so for that reason, it's my funniest moment.
Yes.
So yeah,
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Mine is that first Talky Toaster scene as well. Specifically, I'm going to call out the one line. So you're Waffle Man. That's
Yep.
that was the bit which really had me in that scene. But
Yeah.
just Talky Toaster, man. You just, yeah.
Best
So good.
character, best character.
hopefully we'll see more of him. No spoilers, please, but hopefully, fingers crossed.
No spoilers for the newbie.
I hope so. It would be a shame if Talky disappeared for another 3 seasons and then came back again. So.
What did everybody give this out of 10? We give Mark's scutters out of 10. How many scutters out of 10 would you give this episode, Jessie?
I'd probably give it a solid, let's say 8. 8's good out of 10.
Ooh,
Like
nice,
there's a couple bits that go on a little bit too long, but overall it's creative, it's funny. There's some good gags, there's some good bits. It's not one that like particularly stands out in my huge memory of Red Dwarf. But it's one that's like, oh yeah, this is a solidly good episode, especially after having accidentally watched the body swap one before this, and it's like, oh, that's bottom rung.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I wonder if we'll find one. Well, I wonder if I'll wait Ron up, because I agree with you. I think that of what I've watched so far, that is my least favorite, the body swap one. So I'll be curious to see if that ever gets beaten. But this one, I'm going to go half a step lower than you, Jessie. I'm going to give this one a 7.5. A lot of the same reasons you said, I agree with you. Some things a little bit too long. I would have liked to have seen the whole white hole thing maybe begin earlier. Maybe not even at the start of the episode, but I don't know. I would have liked to have seen a bit more of the effects and stuff, and like what it meant for them all and that sort of thing. But yeah, this was a fairly solid episode. Some standout, like mainly talky stuff, like we said. So yeah, I'll stick 7.5. That's what I'll give it.
I am going to go with 8. I'm gonna be with the same as you on this, Jessie. Yeah, I'm gonna give it an 8. It's a pretty funny episode. Talky Toaster obviously gives it a whole extra point by itself.
I mean, it would have been a 2. It would have been a 2 without talking, really.
And it's good stuff from Holly as well. The only thing is that middle bit lull. The lull in the middle was maybe a bit of a weaker point. And like you say, there are some bits that go on a bit too long. Mm-hmm. But yeah, an enjoyable episode, I think. Mm-hmm. So there we go. That's another episode down. We're almost at the end of series 4 now, so we're getting our way through this.
What are they at now? Like 12 series plus the movie?
12 plus the special.
Yeah. When I came into this, and I was like, Red Dwarf, yeah, that's like what? Few seasons, handful of episodes. He was like, yeah, there's over 100. I was like, oh, okay. So I had no idea it had gone on. Well, still going on as long as I thought it was like a 90s thing that fizzled out, but alas, I am mistaken.
And then you got to read the novels. I mean, to be fair though, like 100 episodes is like 3 American seasons. So.
Yes, and talking of the novels, me and Adam now both own the first 2 novels, so we will be doing a special episode at some point once we finish reading them on the novels.
Yeah. And maybe one day, if we can find a good version, we might tackle the American pilot version of Red Dwarf. That apparently isn't.
I forgot that was a thing.
So good.
Have you ever seen that?
I've never seen that. No, that's got to be fun. It'll be one of those like, oh
clips,
god,
and the clips are bad.
Oh,
well, that's some of the best stuff though. I always like it when they do like really. It's like, oh god, why?
Yeah. So we might come to that in the future.
Yeah, these are some of the specials that our listeners will have to wait for while we get around to doing them. But every week we'll be doing our usual trek through in order. Before we
someone say trek? What?
Trek?
A trek.
Don't tease me like that.
Stars. On a big.
Hey, well, we're doing Star Trek next, apparently, so you come and join us for that.
Yes. I mean, if you'll have me, I will be here.
I can't start another rewatch of Trek from the beginning because I haven't finished my last rewatch of Trek from the beginning. About when was it? I think maybe 6 years ago, I started watching Enterprise, and I've been watching them in chronological order, like timeline chronological order since. So this was before Discovery started, and I'm only up to like series 4 of TNG because I just kept on stopping for long periods of time. So I can't start again. I've got to finish. The one I'm already on.
See, that's been my problem with, like I said, I'm doing a Star Trek Voyager rewatch now, and it's just like that one I've been stopping and starting for the past few months because honestly, in my opinion, Star Trek Voyager's early seasons are some of the hardest ones to get through. Not because they're the worst, like early TNG is probably the worst, but early TNG is bad in an interesting way, whereas early Voyager just kind of like, it was an episode, you know.
Just a bit dull.
Yeah, it's a bit dull. It gets better. Voyager definitely gets better, but it's the roughest one because it's like, yeah. Whereas like TNG, I'll be like, what? Who thought the planet of half-naked people rubbing each other with apparently if you step in our garden we'll murder you thing was a good idea? Which is an actual episode of TNG. It's like a bunch of hot naked people rubbing each other, and then if you step on this one patch of garden, they will apparently kill you. It's like legitimately an episode. Yeah.
This is what you have to look forward to when you eventually get around to TNG. Yeah. Adam.
Wonderful. Well, when that day comes, I'll be ready.
Yeah. Look, where can people find you on the interwebs, Jessie?
You can find me on my YouTube's it's Jessie Gender, where I do videos every single Friday, big video essays and fun stuff like that. I also do streaming on both my YouTube channel and on Twitch, mostly video games, and I get drunk on my video game streams, which is always fun. And then I am also on Twitter, where you can find me doing, ranting about politics or whatever's on my mind at the time. And also, I have a secondary channel called Jessie Gender After Dark, where I do other reviews and stuff. And I also have a Patreon, where you can help support me doing what I do. So that's all the stuff. But the main stuff is the Jessie Gender YouTube channel. So that's where all the main stuff.
Yes, getting to 100,000 before the end of the year. Adam, do you want to plug where people can find you?
Yes, of course. So on YouTube, just Adam Martyn. That's Martyn with a Y. I should pop up. I do videos on Doctor Who, various other pop culture things, just sort of whatever I'm interested in. I like to talk about me hobbies and stuff. And Twitter, if you want to tune into my ramblings, it's Adam Martyn AMTV. I'll post, a few jokes, few memes, few giveaways as well. And that's me. And what about you, Phil?
Well, if you're not watching this on my YouTube channel, which you might not be because it's also available as a podcast on various other platforms, then you can find me. It's just my name, Philip Hawkins, and I do stuff about Doctor Who and MCU and other pop culture, and of course this Red Dwarf podcast is hosted up there as well. If you delve far enough back into my back catalogue, you'll find another video with Jessie on, where we talked about Doctor Who's the Big Finish release, Stranded 1, and we talked a bit about how it tackled transgender representation. So do go and check that out if you've got some time. And you never know, we might be doing another video on Stranded 2.
Possibly tomorrow.
Soon. Possibly recording tomorrow. But that one, I believe, is going on your channel, isn't it, Joe? Your second channel.
That'll be going on Jessie Gender After Dark. So look for that sometime in the next few weeks, I'm sure. So I don't know when this will come out compared to that one. So if it's not up already, it'll be up soon. So.
Yeah. And you can find me on Twitter, which is, I'll spell it out for you because it's weird. IUDEX_Phil with 1 L. So that's how you can find me.
Still not changed it, Phil.
Oh, I know. I keep saying I'm going to change it because it's weird and nobody can spell it. And if I say it, people spell it differently. And if people look at it, they think the I's an L, and it's. I just need to.
That's why when I came up with Jessie Gender, I went and snagged everything. I snagged the URL. I snagged. I just like, this is mine, and I'm keeping it. I'm grabbing it all.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, thanks for watching. Do let us know what your thoughts are of this episode if you're on YouTube in the comments below, or let us know on Twitter. I haven't said we have a Twitter account for the show as well.
Yes, we do.
At All Dead Dave Pod. So do let us know on there as well if you can, and don't forget to like, share, subscribe, all that jazz. We'll be back next week for another episode. Thanks a lot. See you then.
Later.